And this week in your Fashion Forward, we're taking a look back at New York Fashion Week and the looks that we can expect to see in the year ahead. Breaking it all down for us today, stylist and author Heather Newberger. What's up, Heather? I know you have a lot to cover.
I do. And, there I was just itching my eye, just like everyone, sitting in Fashion Week, checking out all the new things, kind of opening up their eyes to the new things we're going to be seeing for FW 2022.
I know. And it's so weird because when you say FW, we're talking about really far down in the year. We're talking about fall and winter. But listen, we can use these for every day, some of them. But what were some of the themes that you saw that we can kind of break down from last week?
So there are a lot of really fun things happening. And I feel like, we're kind of seeing this real evolution in Fashion Week because ever since Fashion Week really left the tents for the Mercedes-Benz tents, it's kind of been a little up in the air as to what we're looking at in terms of where the shows are happening, how we're buying space, how we're sort of engaging with stylists and designers. So some of the things we're seeing now, especially with COVID, is different ways of sharing collections. So Collina Strada is a great example of that. They really took that with, energy and kind of went with it and decided to create a fashion video that they premiered instead. We're also looking at a brand like FW'22, who is doing their show at the historic Essex Market. So we're talking about different venues, different locations, and just ways of sharing the collection that is more exciting than we might have seen before.
Yeah, and you know what's fun? That we talk about fashion every week on this show, and you talked about stuff before that actually things you predicted are now being seen at Fashion Week. What were they?
I know, and it's so funny because I predicted this like a year ago, and then I was sort of like taken by storm by what was actually, happening out there, and I was like, wow, I must be wrong. But I am right. Intentionally Oversized is back. We are seeing Michael Kors doing it. We are seeing Peter Do doing it. A lot of suiting particularly. And one of the things I was saying before, is people trying to sort of feel comfortable and kind of hide their pandemic bodies. But actually what we're seeing with this sort of oversized suiting is really leaning into kind of sharing your frame through that intentionally oversized look. So I think it's really interesting because it also kind of talks about something we spoke about before and we'll touch on a little bit later, which is the idea of quote unquote dystopia-core, which kind of comes back to the idea of wearing body armor to protect yourself in this really, time that's really in flux.
Yeah, certainly strange times we are still currently living in. So what about for those who do want to stand out and have a little more frame fitting?
Well, one of the things we're still seeing is a lot of sparkle and shine on that runway. Something that people have been talking about a lot is how, once we're coming into the 20s, it's the roaring 20s now. And Francis Schuler is definitely saying, hey, it might be the roaring 20s, but it's still 2022 and not 1920. So we're looking at different kinds of ways of reincorporating sparkle, shine, sequins, all these different things into our wardrobes as well as into our makeup. Let's talk Euphoria.
Yeah, a little bit of a glitter moment, and if anything's coming from Euphoria, you actually kind of see that dystopian stuff there as well. What trends did we touch on here that you also saw during Fashion Week?
So again, one of these things we talked about before was quote unquote dystopia-core, kind of coming from, looking at different movies like Dune and the Reloaded Matrix, coming out with different jackets and leathers. And so I personally love this Gabriella Hearst version, which actually takes sort of this beautiful detailed and kind of lace approach to what otherwise would be kind of a more sort of stagnant jacket. And so it takes a real feminine flair, but also really keeps you protected. Then we're also looking at other things like Very Peri, one of the colors we talked about as being the Pantone color of the year. And Very Peri is being seen on the runways with all different designers, but here you see them with Private Policy doing some really beautiful work. And I'm here for that hair. And last but not least, we've talked a lot about gender fluidity in terms of fashion, and I will continue to talk about it. But here we go. Here's FW'22, fall, winter 22. We're seeing sparkle, we're seeing shine, we're seeing a dress, and we're seeing it on a man. And I love it. I think what we're talking about now in fashion is that really, there is no gender divide. Who you are is who you are, and how you want to dress, it's really up to you.
Great advice. That when it comes down to the bottom line, that is definitely it. You're always out there spotting the latest trends, keeping us way ahead. Thanks, Heather. We'll see you again next week. In the meantime, you guys, make sure you're following her on Instagram at Heather Newberger, and then pick up her book, How to Date Your Wardrobe.